Yes, this is Dr. Fred Weaver III, and we're starting our second series of workshops. This is the first one, and we will do 2 more. Tonight, we're fortunate in to have with me 2 of my favorite people on the planet, both of which are doing a lot of good work in an organization that they created over 15 years ago.
17.
17.
Yeah.
Wow, the time goes by.
It
About
does.
2 years.
When you're having fun.
Yeah, when you're having fun.
That's right.
And the idea is that you have fun, and you're still having fun, and you're developing uplifting, insightful programs for people.
Yes.
I hope that you will tell us something about that, and you can share with them whatever you would like to share with the public.
Okay.
I, when in turn, after you both have finished, may input or attempt to translate some of what you say into our developing paradigm. And over the course of the next 2 workshops, we will come up with ideas to make practical and real various programs and processes that people can use to uplift and get more bliss out of their own lives.
Very good.
So without further ado, I'll start with the prettiest one and the one closest to me, Dr. Elsbeth Meuth.
Meuth.
And over on the other end is Freddy Zental Weaver.
That's right.
The one and only. So, Dr. E, would you please share something?
Yeah, I love to. So, Freddy Zental and I, we have been together for the last 17 years. We met on the internet in 2001. I was on my own tantric journey to really discover who I wanted to become in terms of love, intimacy, and my sexual self. I had really struggled a great deal, before that around creating lasting intimacy in my life. I was attracted to unavailable men, and that was a pattern that I, discovered. And in order to shift that, I decided to delve deeper into the study of Tantra. And it was quite miraculous what opened up.
Mm-hmm.
It allowed me to see what was in the way of creating the lasting intimacy I was looking for, which really had to do with me distrusting men. And that was, came from an earlier time when I was a teenager, when I at some point decided that men are never really there for you when you need them. I mean, how can you create a loving, trusting relationship with anyone, leave alone a man, if that runs in the background? And through the tantric practice, I cleared my sexual, emotional, and spiritual being in a way that I couldn't even, imagine that was possible. And out of that clearing, what opened up was that I then even was able to see the men that became then my beloved and still is my beloved.
Hello.
Hello, darling.
Hey, brother.
Hey, yes. Well, my name is Freddy Zental Weaver, and this is my father, Dr. Weaver, who I've learned so much for and has been a mentor for me my whole life and a good friend. And this is my beloved Elsbeth. The last 17 years, we're founders and directors together of Tantranova Institute in Chicago for the last 17 years. My journey, my first experience or journey into Tantra, the practices that we teach, which Tantranova, Tantra New, is an integration of the old Tantra of the energetic yoga, original practice of energetic yoga. And it's all energy, so emotional body and sexual energetic body. And some of the approaches of transformation that we know in the Western world in terms of generative language and creative self-discovery and so on. So we've integrated these two dynamics of creating a way for people to get transformation in their life. Transformation being that thing that is something that we want to create, our deepest desires that seem to elude us in the simple process of our living. So my first experience into Tantra was when I was I was 13 years old, living in the beautiful islands of Hawaii with my dad, and I was going through my puberty, and I was spending a lot of time in the shower. He gave me a book to read on how to integrate meditation and sex practices, and that was my first experience of really learning how to draw on sexual energy as a doorway to more intimately getting to pieces of myself that I couldn't get to. I became a better athlete, a better student, went on to college and kept reading and practicing this in my personal relationships as an adult after college. I never thought I'd teach this, but wound up in San Francisco in the software business for many years. And when I first started, I was very excited about the work. And then after about 10, 15 years, it was just a job. And I was feeling, knowing what I knew about these practices, being inspired about my life, that was a continuing story in my head that I was not feeling inspired. So I thought, well, a new city. So I took a job opportunity in San Francisco, or in Chicago. And at the time I was single, looking for a Shakti, a female Tantra partner. And I was online looking, and I saw Elsbeth. And we met, and we almost immediately had a baby, which was Tantranova. And we've been nurturing and creating this and sharing it with thousands of couples and individuals all over the world since, books and tapes. And we really I love doing the work and seeing what happens for people and getting that they can really create and be responsible for everything in their life. So we can get into a little more of the nuts and bolts of how this all works, but that's a little bit about me. I don't want to keep going on too much of an existential discourse, so I'm going to bounce it back and forth here. We can keep going. But what we do so dovetails, and so much of what I have languaged and have created with Elsbeth as a curriculum and practice for people, for me, comes out of a lot of what I learned from my father, Dr. Weaver, in his creating creative self-discovery, and now he's gone on to create so many other dynamics of how we can use practices to create transformation in our life. So.
Very good. Yeah, that's good. Okay, now could you also specify some of the programs and kind of give us a synopsis of what you expect and how you design these programs? Sure. And then I'll save my stuff to input and share from whoever you want to.
And then I'll come.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Beautiful. So the beauty of the work is that we support people, of course, doing this with ourselves ongoingly, supporting in reintegrating our sexual, emotional, and spiritual self. Historically, the sexual and the spiritual don't belong together. Like the world religions, right. It's really something, there's a dichotomy that they do not belong together. However, just like yin and yang, you know, the yin complements the yang, and the yang complements the yin. Yin. Without the white, I wouldn't see the black, and vice versa. In the same way, the sexual complements the spiritual, and vice versa. So that, of course, gives a very different picture of this interplay of our physical, earthly being and our spiritual, mental being. And the beauty of Tantra, also in Taoism, that is available there as well, is to tap into our energies in a way so that we can reintegrate them, because this is how we come into this world. We are totally integrated, and then we become compartmentalized, and I was like that a lot. I was a lot in my head, developed my, mind, some development of my heart, the emotional, but there was something missing that really came together in tapping into my sexual self, not so much initially about having better sex, and that evolved as well. It was tapping into my life force energy, and whatever was misconstrued out of, the collective understanding that I grew up in, my familial upbringing and stories I configured in order to cope with life. So by clearing that, what happened was it's like a domino effect, which went through my whole being, and I became more of the self who I am. So that is so essential that we reintegrate, what we also call it is coming back to wholeness. Because if I'm not in my wholeness, how can I relate to another in wholeness? Yeah?
Yeah. So, yeah. So, essentially what we're sharing with people, and many people who come to us, men and women, we work with both, and Elsbeth teaches a women's series and I teach a men's series, a lot of our workshops are co-ed, is really how we can work a lot of people who come to our work have done a lot of work with themselves in creating transformation, done therapy, they've done meditation walks and retreats and so on. What makes our work unique is working consciously with sexual energy. So if you think of sexual energy as creative, it creates life and it's pleasurable. And it's something we're all umbilically tied to. Without it, none of us would be here. The elements of which are creative, and it creates life. When we bring consciousness to the sexual, creativity and pleasure start showing up in areas of our life that seem completely unrelated to sex and the simple process of living itself. So when we're sharing some of the dynamics of meditation, the dynamics of breath, breathing consciously with our belly, developing what we call the witness state of mind, where we can actually watch our story and the total felt sense of that story, aligned with an intention of I want to stop arguing with my beloved, or I want to create a beloved, or work that's fulfilling, or living in a place that's inspiring. We start to get more connected in a deeper way through the unmasking, working with sexual energy, because when we're in that, we're more open, loving, vulnerable, receptive, chemically we're changed, oxytocin is released, endorphin, serotonin, the feel-good hormones. Then we start to get more intimately connected and stripped away, if you will, of the unconscious aspects of ourselves, to really get to that subconscious piece of our story making that we live in, to begin to shift in a very real world place the results that we're creating and getting in our life. So that's kind of a quick, I know that that's a lot said in a short distance, but we'll keep unpacking it, see what we can get there.
Yeah, very good. So I'd like to just say that both of you seem to have done a lot of work on yourself individually, both you personally and in your Tantra training. With what's one of your gurus' name?
Charles Meuth.
Yes, who's a well-known Tantra American
practitioner,
expert. And he wrote a book that was very successful.
The Art of Loving,
The Art
Conscious
of
Living.
Loving, sold millions of copies. And by the way, you all have written a book called Sexual Enlightenment, which I recommend to anybody who would like to begin to see how beautiful sex is when blossoming.
Yes.
And they got the essence of sexuality and love.
Yes.
And very honest book, I think, and I certainly enjoyed your sharing and honesty that I found in the book. Now, I was just thinking as you two were talking, how the paradigm that has evolved in my development and evolution, epigenetic evolution,
Yes.
with regard to space. See if this can fit into some of the things that you're talking about. That the beauty of the transformation of sexual energy from the raw, biological, emotional roots to our top seventh chakra of the 1,000-petal lotus, where we really resurrect and where we really mature as top-level beings, as modeled by various gurus and various top creative people. And each person has an imprint of that model that's uniquely rooted in their talents and abilities, if they could but find it. So I can hear resonating in my mind, you've developed programs that will support people in translating and transforming that sexual energy into holistic, developmental energy.
Yes,
It's
Yes.
vibrational synchrony
you got it,
Yes.
Doc.
with
Yes.
the universe.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So I feel that you were raised in this tradition. I was fortunate enough when you were growing up to have been in my own personal analysis. So I was able to start seeing some of the ambivalences and misunderstandings of my childhood were being projected onto my children, of which you were the oldest son. And the fun of it was that I was able to see little Freddy in you and attempt to correct some of the things in you that were not reasonable to me as I grew up, not beneficial to my maintaining my wholeness. And I think it took. I think you got the message. I was able to give you the kind of space you needed to test out your boundaries. You made a few mistakes, not as many as I made, but then again, too few to mention. And I feel that what you're doing is a natural part of your maturation.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
to find a partner who's in sync with you, you two have just been amazing in, like you said, creating your baby.
Yes,
Tantranova.
yes, yes. And we've been nurturing it for the last 17 years.
Right, and it keeps blossoming.
Yes, yes, it
And
does.
you travel all over Europe doing workshops in Mexico and
Bahamas and
all
Australia.
over the
yeah.
country, and you do them in California, you do them in Texas. And each time I talk to you, I have fun interacting because I feel that you do something that I was never quite able to do, and that is to translate my insights into practical isms. And I think through your Tantranova and the workshops that I've experienced and what I know of it, you both have the kind of language that seems to connect with people wherever they're at. And that if a person is really fairly authentic or seeking authenticity genuinely, this is one main door to open them
Yeah.
to their own potentiality.
May I build on that?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you,
The what you opened up a little earlier, when you said space.
Right,
You know,
okay.
this is really, I mean, what does that mean?
Yes.
You know, what does it mean